Money King. Philistine then ordered his minions to take Jojo and Abraham inside a nearby shanty house. There, he comfortably settled in, commanding a lavish feast, while his minions brought platters of food to his table. The aroma of the food triggered the child's rumbling stomach, and he couldn't help but ask his father for a piece of the meal that Philistine was indulging in. In a desperate attempt to alleviate his child's hunger, Abraham moved toward Philistine's plate, reaching for a piece of chicken. But, before he could grasp it, Philistine menacingly aimed a gun at him. In a terrifying moment, Philistine chastised Abraham, criticizing the idea of taking someone else's food without permission and declaring such behavior should be eliminated. With the gun menacingly waved in Abraham's direction, Philistine devoured the food greedily, all while Jojo and the other captives watched in helpless anguish. When the feast was over, Philistine heartlessly suggested that Abraham's child could lick the leftovers from the plates he had eaten from. This unbearable sight angered Jojo beyond fear, watching Philistine humiliate Abraham in front of his starving child. The child, driven to the brink of desperation by hunger, reached out to the plates, but Abraham's protective instincts gave way. He initially stopped his child, who was now in tears, realizing the desperate need for something in his stomach. As Jojo was on the verge of intervening, Abraham restrained him, fearing the consequences. Philistine, watching closely, inquired whether Jojo was getting worked up and if he wanted to strike him, as he had once done in prison. Jojo, locking eyes with Philistine, declared that he had knocked him out before and vowed to do it again. Furious, Philistine couldn't bear the threat from Jojo. In a fit of anger, he threw Jojo out of the shanty house, causing chaos in the process. Abraham and Evanjo were beginning to rise, but Philistine swiftly pointed his gun at them, warning them not to attempt anything foolish. The standoff between them reached a critical point as Philistine prepared to make a fateful decision. Philistine's menacing presence loomed over Jojo, his finger twitching on the trigger, contemplating whether to end Jojo's life with a bullet or make it a personal fight. However, Philistine's ego got the best of him, and he decided that Jojo wasn't worth wasting a bullet. He would take him down with his bare hands. Jojo understood the gravity of the situation as Philistine made it clear that if he lost this fight, either Abraham or his child would pay the price. It was a choice Jojo could not afford to make lightly. Philistine ordered his henchmen to restrain Abraham and Evanjo, disarmed himself by tossing away his gun, and then lunged at Jojo. The ensuing brawl was a brutal spectacle. Philistine's anger fueled his punches, and he rained heavy blows upon Jojo, all the while taunting him who's knocking who out while with creepy laughter. Jojo, though badly beaten, displayed resilience as he picked himself up after each blow, much to Philistine's amusement. As the fight continued, Jojo threw punches, but Philistine skillfully evaded most of them. The battle reached a critical point when Philistine delivered a powerful punch to Jojo's face, knocking him out cold. Philistine, majestically and arrogantly, declared his victory, and his minions applauded the brutal spectacle. Jojo lay on the ground, battered and in pain. He saw the gun that Philistine had earlier discarded, and he desperately attempted to crawl towards it. However, Philistine caught up with him before he could reach the weapon. Philistine, rather than delivering a final blow, surprised Jojo by expressing his admiration for Jojo's fighting spirit. He offered an unexpected proposition: join his team, and he would forgive all the past conflicts between them. The condition: Jojo had to take either Abraham's life or Abraham's child's life in exchange for sparing his own. Jojo found himself in an agonizing moral dilemma, akin to the one the chief faced earlier. He replied to Philistine, recounting that he was simply on his way home when they had ambushed, robbed and beat him mercilessly and found himself in a hospital. In Jojo's view, they were already even without resorting to murder. Philistine's reaction to Jojo's response was swift and merciless. He turned the gun on Evanjo, who had remained silent throughout. He told Evanjo that it was unfortunate they met in the wrong place and in the wrong time. Without hesitation, he shot Evanjo in the head, a deafening gunshot that echoed through the forest. The gunshot had unintended consequences, as its loud report carried for miles. This allowed the angry market stall owners, whose businesses had been burned and vandalized by the untouchable gang, to pinpoint the gang's location in the forest. Back in the gang's hideout camp, Philistine, his eyes cold and calculating, fixed his gaze on Jojo and delivered an ominous ultimatum. He demanded that Jojo make an impossible choice between Abraham and his child. The weight of the decision pressed upon Jojo's shoulders, and he hesitated. Abraham was the only family he had left in this world. Time seemed to stand still for Jojo, and all he could hear was the frantic rhythm of his own heart. The suffocating silence was abruptly shattered by a deafening gunshot that echoed through the hideout. In the tense aftermath, Jojo's eyes remained tightly shut, fearful of the outcome. Then, a tumultuous uproar from a crowd reached his ears. Jojo's heart raced as he listened to the chaos unfolding around him. He slowly opened his eyes, and his vision revealed a heart-wrenching scene. Abraham's wife knelt on the ground, her anguished cries filling the air. Beside her, Abraham lay still, his body serving as a shield to protect his precious child from the fatal bullet. The sacrifice he had made to keep his promise was tragically evident, leaving Jojo devastated. Jojo rushed to Abraham's side, attempting to staunch the bleeding, but the wound was grave. In his final moments, Abraham reflected on the promise he and Jojo had made during their time in prison, a promise to become successful and make a positive change in society. He implored Jojo to fulfill that promise, not only for himself but also for his children. He turned to Mandy, expressing his love and understanding for their previous argument. With a last, gentle smile, Abraham drew his final breath, leaving Jojo and Mandy in tears and mourning the loss of their beloved. At the critical moment, as emotions flared, a sudden interruption occurred. Jojo spotted Felicity trying to escape and ordered the mob to rain on him. The shrill sound of sirens pierced the air, and a fleet of police vehicles arrived at the scene in a dramatic display of authority. The officers emerged swiftly, their uniforms a stark contrast to the chaos that had engulfed the area. With a commanding presence, they fired warning shots into the sky, causing the agitated crowd to pause and reconsider their actions. Seeing the police arrive, the mob hesitated in their pursuit of Felicity, momentarily stepping back. The officers, with a no-nonsense approach, swiftly apprehended Felicity and secured him in their vehicle. The crowd, though still seething with anger, hesitated to confront the determined police force. The police made it clear that justice would prevail as they sped away with their captured suspect, leaving the devastated crowd to contemplate the tragic events that had unfolded. And where was the police when their market was under attack? Jojo, now bereft of his closest friend, mourned Evanjo's death and contemplated his own role in the tragic events that had unfolded. He vowed, in prayer, that he would not rest until he brought Felicity to justice. Anthony also, who had arrived late to help but had witnessed the heartbreaking events unfold, was overcome by guilt. He couldn't help but blame himself for not being there earlier to protect Evanjo, his dear friend. The sense of responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders, and he knew that he, too, would have to play a part in ensuring Felicity faced justice for his heinous deeds. The crowd gathered around Jojo, Mandy, and her child, and Abraham's lifeless body, a collective display of sorrow and anger at the painful loss. On the other side, the police vehicle carrying Felicity stopped in the middle of the forest. Felicity emerged, seemingly grateful to the police for saving him. With grim determination in his eyes, Felicity began his journey towards Nairobi, determined to conquer the city. Yet, he remained oblivious to the relentless force that was now chasing him, Jojo, who was resolved to achieve his dream of becoming the Money King and avenging his friend Abraham's death. Jojo was left in profound regret, grappling with the weight of his actions. He couldn't shake the feeling that his confrontations with Felicity had indirectly led to the tragic loss of Abraham, who had become like family to him. As he knelt by Abraham's lifeless body, he vowed to honor their memory by pursuing a path of justice and redemption. Jojo's future still remained uncertain. Would Jojo fulfill his promise to bring the increasingly powerful Felicity down, and could Mandy and her child find solace after the profound loss they had endured? Thank you for being part of this captivating narrative, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the Fred Oketch's YouTube channel, the proud sponsor of Money King Season 1. As Kestra Films officially makes its debut on YouTube, it opens the door to an ever-expanding universe of stories, cultures, and adventures. Get ready to embark on an exciting journey by subscribing to Kestra Films as well, where tales of wonder and intrigue await your exploration. Enjoy the adventures that lie ahead.